Oh, excuse me, I dropped my gavel. Approval of the minutes. Have we all read the minutes?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Or any amendments to the
I
minutes?
move to approve the minutes
As written?
as written.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second to approve the minutes as written. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Appearance of interested citizens. I don't have the list. I know we're out of practice, Debbie. We haven't done this much.
Right. Betty Hart first. Betty Hart first.
Biddy Hart? Oh, they took your chair away.
You might have to speak loudly, okay?
So I'll have to speak a shorter amount of time since I don't have a chair to sit on. My name is Betty Hart. I live on 9th Court here in Keizer. And I was at Country Glen Park in late June and tripped on the ledge. You have this handout that your chair. Tripped on this ledge coming from my car across the grass here and looking towards where I was going, missed that there was this big ledge, and I fell and hit the back of my head. Fortunately, not very hard, and it turned out Carol Yertler was there, and she's a retired nurse, so she checked to be sure I didn't have a concussion. And I won't need a bone density test for a while, so it worked out just fine. But I wanted to bring it to your attention. I did send an email the following day to Robert and copied Bill Lawyer about it, showed this picture. It happens that this spot is almost directly across the street from Mr. Herrera's house. And so if you end up parking your car there along on the street, go across the strip of deep grass to step up on the path, it's possible you'll end up with a ledge. I was there last week and noticed that no attention had been made to this particular spot. I did notice, however, there were some dirt in some places on the inside of the path towards the main part of the park, which means that if there had been a ledge there, and I have no idea whether or not there was, that had been taken care of. It just happens that also in this spot, the grass has a little dip in it as well. So it's, you know, you kind of step down and then it's real easy to catch the toe of your foot or shoe on the ledge there. So I wanted to bring it to your attention and hope that you will see that any of these kinds of things, not only in Country Glen Park, but elsewhere. I was very impressed, by the way, with the path itself because it's so well done. And I noticed quite a few people were walking around the park on the path. So if there are no questions, then I'll be done.
Yes?
So actually just Robert, is this kind of a function of the overlay because they're not going down? Is that kind of what's happening with the path then?
Yeah, when we redid that trail a year and a half ago, we had to meet less than 2% cross slope for ADA purposes. So in order to do that, in order to provide a pathway for, you know, folks on a wheelchair that could have some sort of handicap, they had to bring up the asphalt in some areas, which created a lip. And I did get the photo from you. I appreciate that. I sat down with Bill Lawyer. We had a conversation about it, and our plan is to get some fill dirt in there soon and take care of that ledge area that you're talking about, that sunken area. I think as time's gone on, the grass in that area has also, up by the curb itself, has also started to settle some more. We have an irrigation system in that park. And so, yeah, short of that, I don't know what else we could really do. It is on street parking only. We do have 2 access points one on each side of the park, but we do not provide an actual like ramped access in the center there. So, yeah, we have talked about it and we plan on adding some filters in there.
Okay, I don't know if there are any other spots along here that are like that. I just know about this one. And I saw that there was an access point, but in reality, if you're getting out of your car on the curb, you're not going to walk down to the end of the street to get onto the path. You're just going to walk across the strip there and get up on the path if you're able to do that. For people who need a handicap ramp, of course, going down to the end would make sense.
So, Mr. Chair, don't you?
Yeah, I'm good. Go ahead.
So, Robert, just to follow up on that, as we're looking at doing paths, to get it at grade, usually means you're going down a couple inches because you got to put the fill in for the base and all that kind of stuff, which is in many cases going to be significantly more expensive. Is as we're looking at this, because I don't want to see anybody else trip over. I mean, we wanted to make paths for easy access, but we don't want to make paths that inhibit access and restrict people's use. Is that fill option kind of the best option rather than going at grade, or?
Just depends on the particular park and the area of the park and the existing slope that you're working with. You know, this was an overlay project,
right.
So we're adding 2. If it was a new path, we would obviously suggest excavation out, probably an additional 3 inches lower than add the rock, then pour the concrete or asphalt, and hopefully you're at about existing grade. But even then, with the ADA guidelines at less than 2% cross slope, that's basically almost a perfectly level path, right? It can't have much teeter to it at all. The ground is not always perfectly level, so you may have high ground here, low ground over here. So you have to either fill or excavate back into a hillside and then cut the bank. So, I mean, it does add a lot of cost to a project for sure. An overlay is probably 1/3 of the cost of an actual excavation, but I understand there's a concern here, and it's one that we definitely want to deal with. So.
Yeah, this ledge here is at least 3, maybe 4 inches. It's a fairly significant ledge to catch on. You can see it's all, well, I don't know how deep the overlay is, but like I said, it looks great, and obviously people like it and use it, so that's wonderful.
Yes.
This isn't a unique problem as we've gone about repairing various features of the park. I know, like, I'm going to screw it up. Is it Wallace House or Willamette Manor? Wallace House is the one with the newer path.
Both had.
Okay, yeah. So they both have had new, I think it was Wallace House in particular that had the complaints about basically the exact same thing, about the slope coming off of the path because it's an overlay. Are we looking to address this the same way at these other places as well? Because it seems like
We would be. This particular site that we're discussing right now is right off the edge of a curb, so it's more likely to be, this path is more likely to be crossed than the other paths.
Oh, yeah.
The other paths are more of the odds of somebody leaving that path would be real slim. Not to say it doesn't exist, but this particular area, because it's on-street parking only, is the most likely to be crossed. So therefore, I would say it would be first on the list.
Yeah.
We did fill at the edge of the trail at Willamette Manor. We had soil on site that we utilized, and we did get all that filled and seeded. We have not yet done the entire Wallace House Park, and we've not done this one particular one either, but this will be definitely next on the list.
great. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
Roland.
directed to
Oh,
Robert.
Roland, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. With respect to this location, I don't know about others, but you mentioned this one had some irrigation underneath, which caused potentially some of the settling. If that is a continued concern, are there potentially some alternatives, like some type of foliage that might provide a natural barrier to discourage people from that particular spot where that hazard is? They can still go around to where it was more level, but I don't know if that's a less expensive or a more permanent option? Because if the ground's going to continue to settle.
I think the settling's pretty well done. If we put any foliage to block people from crossing there, our sprinkler heads would no longer be able to irrigate the grass beyond that, so I don't think that's probably the best option. I think just simply bringing in some fill dirt, throwing some seed over it. We may have to raise a few of our sprinkler heads up that are along the curb line, but I truly do think that would be the most cost-effective way of going about fixing this problem, just the way that our irrigation system is designed currently. So.
Okay.
Yes, Roland?
That happens to be right across from my house, and I know that pretty well. By the way, Robert is 100% correct. There are areas in that park where by the way, that path was well done, the last part, beautiful. It did leave a bigger lip, and that part that the dirt is, I filled in there because we actually had an accident there. We actually filled the area that we kind of use, sort of. And he's 100% correct on the part. The other side, even that it's not a big deal. But that particular side, being that it's right by the curb, and people get out, and then I've seen people fall there several times. In fact, I've seen Betty fall twice. Is that right, Betty?
You didn't have to tell them.
Okay. but it was really. I mean, I never thought a whole bunch about it. I just filled in certain areas until I saw when she hit her head pretty hard, and it was like, wow, we got to do something here. At least there, But that's the only area where the parallel to the curb. The other areas, there is a little lip, but I don't see a crossing problem or nothing like that. But that's the result of a nice path. It did leave a little bigger lip. And it would require some dirt, yeah, it would require a little work. So that's true, Robert.
Any other discussion? Apparently, Carol Dorfler also weighed in on this.
Oh, yeah, she was there when I fell.
Yeah, she mentions that, and she also mentions that she's brought up these edges before. And apparently she's not happy with them not all being perfect. So, has everybody got this letter, or do I need to read it?
No, I've just put it there for you to read.
Oh, well, this will be fun. I'm a terrible reader. Yes, please.
Okay, so this is a email from Carol Dorfler. It said, I tried to send this to Dave Loudon for the meeting this evening. However, it bounced back twice, so I'm hoping you can get it to him. I was planning on attending this meeting, the July 14th Parks Advisory Board meeting. However, I am unable to do that, so I am submitting this email under the heading of appearance of interested citizens. A few months ago, I appeared before you with my and the West Keizer Neighborhood Association's concern about the depth of the drop-offs on the sides of the pathways in our parks after they had been resurfaced. We felt it was a walking and biking hazard, not to mention wheelchair hazard, should a foot, bike, tire, or wheelchair wheel slip off the edge, which could toss a person from a bike or a wheelchair or cause a sprained ankle. We were assured that the edges would fill in, I'm guessing that's, okay. Last month, I had the pleasure of visiting Country Glen Park. I had not been there before, and what a lovely place it is, except for the edges that measure 3 to 4 inches deep. While there, I witnessed an older woman trip up the edge. She landed on her ended up flat on her back. I heard her head hit. That is what alerted me to the incident as I was ahead of her and talking to a friend. Fortunately, she did not sustain a severe injury. I think the liability here is pressing. Please rediscuss this with your board and perhaps pass a recommendation that the Parks Department take another look at these drop-offs before anyone does suffer an injury and then in turn sues the city. Thank you for your time, Carol Dorfler, President, West Keizer Neighborhood Association.
And I'm the older woman.
Oh, wow.
She didn't call me an old woman, Anything else from me?
Any other questions for her? Yes, Matt.
So Betty, I've known you for a long time. I'm glad you're okay. Thanks for bringing this up.
I was very concerned because it easily could have been an ambulance ride. They would have done a CT scan for sure because I am an older woman to be sure that I didn't have a concussion. because that's fairly standard procedure in falls of people who are older. And so, which I thought, well, that would not be a good thing for the city. Yes, thank you.
Robert, a lot of these paths were done last fall, right? So, I mean, a very real universe that we're living in, and it doesn't excuse the fact that somebody got hurt, and I think that that's first and foremost, but the very real universe that we're living in, and the time that would have generally been appropriate for Robert and his guys to try to get this stuff all done, COVID happened. And I know up until recently, Robert has struggled mightily just to get his temp service people in place. In fact, it's only been within the last 2 weeks that he's actually got bodies in there. That doesn't excuse the fact that you got hurt, but you know, I know that I think we all trust Robert well enough to know that now that this is something that's very apparent and very serious, that he's going to take all the action in the world to make sure that this is not a reoccurring theme. You know, the West Keizer neighborhood has been in here with multiple representatives looking at this issue, and I know that Robert takes these things very, very seriously, and I appreciate personally you coming and telling us about this, and hopefully Robert and his great group of guys will get this taken care of as soon as possible so we can prevent this from happening to somebody else.
Thank you.
Yes, Mike?
Just towards Robert. So Robert, another thing in that park that I did bring up last month was over where the trees are. There's some pretty good sized cracks starting to go across, and I worry about people tripping on those too. So that just might be something that we look at also.
Yeah, as I reported in our budget that was started July 1st, it's actually in the budget to repair pathways at the park. So that is a budget item. It's a project that will happen this budget year.
Great.
I don't have a set date for that yet, but it is on our list of things to repair this year.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Palmer Snap?
Hey there, my name is Palmer Snap. I'm a Keizer citizen. I'm a Boy Scout from Troop 121, and I was here last month to ask for funding for the city park, the benches for the community garden, and I'm here to tell you that those are finished in the garden. It went pretty smoothly despite COVID. We were able to keep our distance, keep masks on, and still get it done well. And they're supposed to last a lot longer than the older benches because we have some good paint and some good stain on there and primer and some new good brass fittings. So those are supposed to last a long time. I heard from Peggy in an email that everyone who's come through there couldn't tell the difference between couldn't tell that those were not brand new. So that's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah.
So hopefully those will work very well for the garden. The project was very fun to do, and I learned a lot about a whole city parks board and how to get grant funding, so that'll be good to know in the future. And that's all I have for you. The only thing I'm missing is a reply from Robert. We don't have our reimbursement yet, so.
It's on its way.
All right.
Yep, the paperwork has been submitted.
That's it. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Roland.
Just a quick comment. Thanks again, Palmer, for all your work. I missed the event. I got there, I think I went the wrong day or an hour early, whatever, Peggy, we talked about that. But I really appreciate your work and your contribution to making our community better. And you earned that eagle. I'll tell you what, I know all the work you put into it. And we really appreciate it. We have to say thank you.
Yep.
Be sure to tell your other Life Scouts about this.
All right.
It's funny that you mentioned everybody thought it was new. I'm looking at the pictures here, and as I'm looking at them, they look like brand new things. So
They do.
that's awesome. Congratulations on a great restoration.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really wondering, like, it looks like, it does look so brand new that I'm wondering, did you just like sand it down and refinish it? Or did you like completely disassemble them and replace the wood?
That's what we did. We
Okay.
completely
Okay.
disassembled it. We repainted and reprimed the metal, but we got rid of that wood entirely. It's
Nice.
in our garbage can. So, but we bought new boards and we got it all cut and stained and everything. So
Yeah, it looks really good. Well done.
Yeah.
yeah.
This looks excellent.
Good job, Paul.
Shane Herb?
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Jane Herb, Keizer resident, live in Gubser. And I heard the other night on the school board meeting that in all of Oregon, kindergartners show up with knowing, when they first start kindergarten, knowing 8 letter sounds and letters. And sadly, in Salem Keizer, our kindergartners arrive knowing 5. And I can't help but think that that is an issue that Salem and Keizer, Marion County, has very sparse library service. We're also probably the biggest city in the entire country without a public library. So we have a wonderful, small, donation-only, volunteer-run library right over here in the old schoolhouse building. And so I've been working with I started a task force a couple of years ago to look at library service. And the last time a task force was employed on this mission was back in 2008. So I just took it upon myself, and I'm very, it's a hard learning curve. Been talking to the mayor and our task force and working with the current library board. And we're just looking at all sorts of ways to bring library service to our community that's suitable to our size of a city, which is about a 20,000 square foot building, about $1.2 million. And I know that will take a ballot measure and a special library district to create it, and that's going to be a very, very long-term project. Meantime, we can take some baby steps, and I'm hoping that we can do that to become a public library. And I can talk all night long about all of these details, but I don't want to bore you with that, because you're probably wondering, why are you here talking to the Parks Board about this? So the reason for that is the other day I was out on a walk and I suddenly had an inspiration that our new library should be at Keizer Rapids Park. And it's amazing what you've all done with that park, and it's such a destination, and it's a family, a draw for people, and the public library would fit right in that setting and be a draw for people to come over more, play at the big toy, go to the amphitheater, play in the park. Could be a mixed-use sort of library building. And I know that you're going to be starting on your master plan soon. And so the reason I'm here tonight is I just wanted to raise that idea with all of you. And I know it will be many years down the road, but if we don't start planning for that today, then it won't ever happen. So that is all I wanted to say tonight. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions?
Yeah, so Jane, I just had one. Did you have a vision for an area where it would go good at Keizer Rapids Park? Did you have a location that you were thinking about?
Well, from the eclipse,
Right.
where we spent a lot of time there, volunteering with CERT, there's that whole big giant field area where we had all the camps set up. And
Right.
so it seems like that would be plenty of space for a building that size, including parking. I mean, I'm not a planner or anything, but and so that's the vision that I had over there in that area.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question, I don't think. I just want to say that this is a fascinating idea to me. I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
In a babyier step, I do want to mention that we recently had a different, I think it was the Eagle Scout, right, project that went in. This is a much babyier step.
Michael Tischer.
Yes.
Yes.
Who put in one of those little free public
Little free
libraries. Of
libraries.
course, this is not even close to what a library offers, but we have one of those at the Keizer Rapids
And
Park.
I often am over there filling that up.
Yeah.
too.
And I think those are great as a nice community, like in the neighborhood option to have. I too would like to see a library in Keizer though.
I'm glad to hear that. I would like for you to join my Facebook page. I started, Mike's on it. I think, Matt, you're on it too. It's called Keizer's Library, the Next Chapter. Starting in August, we're going to have a Keizer-wide ebook book club where everybody can check out the same book and be reading that and have book discussion. And so we're trying to, right now, just build community awareness for the library, because nothing can happen until there's a swell of people saying, hey, why aren't we being served? Why are our kids at a disadvantage to other communities? So I'm hoping to just keep plugging away at it, and someday we're gonna have big scissors out there cutting the ribbon at a library, whether it's in Keizer Rapids Park or somewhere else in Keizer. I appreciate your time and listening.
What
Thanks.
did you say the name of your Facebook page is?
It's called Keizer's Library, the Next Chapter.
Keizer's Library?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And we're starting a Google page too for it in case there are people not on the Facebook page that want to join the book club. So, and I've been posting on like Nextdoor Gupser and that kind of thing to start getting the word out.
Yes.
So Jane, you and I have had many conversations about this thing. And conceptually, when Jane first talked to me about it, the vision that immediately came to my head was kind of what she suggested, which was that joint library recreational kind of area to be open for youth recreation, but also reading and things like that. And so while right now it's not currently anticipated, the discussion of the master plan would be coming up. And so if that is going to be something that this body and ultimately the city council wants to consider, Jane's input along that process would be helpful. And introducing it now kind of gets it in front of our minds. It certainly sparked interest in Dylan and some other folks in the room here. And so, it's the best place to start is just asking the question on how and when and where. The rec center is something that I think that many of us dream about and want. It comes with a very, very hefty price tag, multi-million-dollar price tag just to build it, and then you're talking about staffing and everything else like that. But if there is sort of a joint effort of sort of a separate library district as part of that, certainly those are the kinds of things I think that help to generate the kinds of ideas and build on the type of successes you're looking towards, and it makes it easier maybe to have a conversation about sort of co-locating those areas and stuff. So just keep pounding the pavement on it, Jane. I know you got a lot of passion about it, and I don't know how the master planning process is going to be, whether it's going to be committees, subcommittees, or whatever, but certainly make sure Robert and Debbie know that you want to be part of that. So
Yes, I absolutely would. Thanks for that, Matt. And many cities have the parks and libraries under the same administration. So it's a really good fit, and I love the idea of the multi-use with the gym, and a library too, that recreation. So,
That did spark a question for me. And so you mentioned that at the very beginning you said that nationally kids go into school knowing around 8 letters, but in Salem, Keizer, only 5?
yes.
Do you have?
It was Oregon.
Oh, it was Oregon.
Oregon
Okay.
kindergartners.
Oh, so Oregon was the 8.
Yeah.
Salem,
That's what they
Keizer is
said on
5.
the-
Okay.
And
I would be very interested, I don't expect you to have the answer to this, but I'd be very interested between the difference between Keizer and Salem.
I would love
It may not look good for us, I don't know, but I just would be really interested in that, because Salem has a library and we, have a volunteer library.
Yeah, that's a very good question, but I will say this, nationally, Usually it's about 20,000 people are served by one public library. So we're short in Salem and Keizer by about 10 libraries based on our population. And as you know, the Salem Library is under construction now, so it's moved and it's not open, thank you, COVID. But it's difficult for Keizer residents and especially kids. I'm not gonna send my kids riding their bike down to downtown Salem to visit the library, and parking is paid, so it's difficult, it's not accessible. Also, one other fact is Keizer residents pay about $237,000 a year towards CCRLS, and we don't get the full benefit of CCRLS membership. We have to pay for our service here, which is $10 a year for the family to join our small library. But these baby steps I'm talking about can get us to be a public library with very little investment by the city. I'm already talking to Chris Epley about it, and Tim Wood, and maybe next year or the year after, this could be a possibility. We could become a public library, and then the step after that is joining CCRLS. And with that, we just open up all the benefits of CCRLS, 1 million items that can be couriered to Keizer for us to pick up from all of the other 16 libraries in that consortium. So we are very close, and I'm excited about a path that we're looking at to make this happen. But it is, a learning curve and step by step, but I'm getting heartened that we're actually making some progress.
Conceptually, I'm familiar with CCRLS, but for those of us that don't speak acronym.
Sorry, I hate that when people do that. So Shemeketa, and I never remember the term, it's Shemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service. And so there are several libraries involved in that, 16 libraries. So Salem Public, McMinnville, Woodburn, Silverton, Dayton, Jefferson. I'm not going to remember all of them. But they all get to share materials among themselves. And so that's where the 1 million items come from. So if we join CCRLS, we'd immediately have access to the 1 million items that are owned by those 16 libraries. And they could be couriered here to us, and that would be paid for by CCRLS and our membership in CCRLS and our tax dollars that we're already spending. So thanks for asking that question.
Well, and that's one of those resources that I can guarantee you most of us in this room probably didn't know anything about. And so it's one of those things that continuing to spread that word through that Facebook group and other avenues is really important, because it's digital media as well as physical media, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things that is such a great resource that almost no one knows about.
Yes.
And that's kind of a struggle, and it's one of those things that's, you said $200,000+ coming out of Keizer annually, and I would bet that the use of that is very, very small percentages of that. I would venture to say probably no more than 2%, I would say.
Probably so.
So
sadly, yes.
It's a big pain in the butt to go, and I did it recently. I got a library card, and there's a bunch of asterisks to it, and it's a pain in the butt to get one.
Really?
Yeah. And so, just to mention it, the numbers on this are really fuzzy, but you said it was over $250,000 or almost $250,000 that we pay in annually?
Yeah, 237, I think.
So, if we were to just look long-term about this, the cost of the initial investment of a library of just over $1 million, so we're talking 5 years before that initial investment pays itself off, that, over a 10-year span, that would be well worth the investment, yeah.
But aren't we still locked in?
I'm sure.
With the city of Salem on this thing? Even if we have our own library, we're still going to have to pay those fees. Isn't that right?
We still have to. We pay the tax to CCRLS, but it's completely apart from Salem.
Yeah.
It's its own public library. McMinnville's its own public library. So we would not be tied in with Salem apart from we both have this membership in CCRLS. It's a little confusing, but no, we would not be tied. It would be Keizer Public Library. That is my dream. Keizer Public Library.
Yep. Keep pounding the pavement, Gene.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gene.
We had one late show. I don't know whether or not he wants to speak, but he's over on the right.
Did you want to speak?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
You don't want me to speak. I'll take up too much time.
That's what we're here for, though. All right, new old business, park reports. Tanya is not here, but she sent us a note. I'm unable to attend the meeting tomorrow night. Bob Newton, I visited the park on Sunday. There must have been a lot of traffic due to the amount of trash that was stacked around the trash cans. I noticed the bark dust needed to be filled in under the swings, and the net on the tennis court had been ripped, and she didn't make it to Ben Miller. Okay. Dylan.
Yeah, I visited Sunset in Claggett, and Sunset's a great park. I did notice, when walking in, they've got the rail over the fence for the like canoes, I think. And maybe it hasn't been used in a while. It's got like a sag to it. And then I just tried to roll it, and it's pretty stiff. I don't know if that's a problem. I haven't any idea what.
Talked to some folks about that. It still acts really well as a slide and protects it from getting scratched from the top of the fence. So they're still pretty happy with it.
Okay, cool. I have no idea if that would be an impact, so that's great. Other than that, on the path, I have no idea how this happened. It was very wet on the path leading down. I kind of slipped a little bit on it. Like, it's just a dirt path. I don't know if somebody came and dumped a bunch of water or what, but it was wet and squishy. And
the beginning of the path or towards the end as you're getting down?
No, like in the middle, like between
There's an
those first
irrigation
couple
system
trees.
in the park now, so maybe we have an irrigation leak going on there.
Yeah, that could very well be.
Definitely.
There was somebody with a bike in the park, and there were bike ruts in it, and then I kind of slipped on it because it was wet. So
this was recent, right? Not back.
This was like an hour ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then you have people in there sitting on the benches. It's a great park, nice river access. Claggett is great. I don't remember what about the play structure from last time I was there was kind of having me feel like it was a little run down, but it looks pretty good. I mean, it's still a well-used, older play structure, but everything looks to be in order, and that's great. And then, this is sort of unrelated, but that Jeff Davis did the work to put that exercise equipment in there, and that stuff looks awesome. I would really like to see some of that in some other parks. I know that was kind of his plan, and we've got some delays, but I'm thinking hopefully Keizer Rapids Park is on his list, because I'd love to see some of that in there. In fact, I was at Keizer Rapids the other day, and in the morning, and this lady was walking by, and she had her phone going with music and like a kettlebell, and she had like come to the park and did some workout and then was walking out, and it looked awesome. I want to do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, Claggett Creek is great. It's very busy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
When I was at Claggett a couple of weeks ago, there was somebody hanging from one of those bars that Jeff put in, like Batman and reading a book.
Like upside down?
Yeah, completely upside down. And it was one of those things, like the human nature of me, I really wanted to take a picture of it, but I'm like, I don't want to be that creepy guy taking a picture of somebody upside down reading a book. But I was just completely fascinated by that. And it wasn't like for like a few minutes. We were there for 20 minutes, and the person was upside down reading this book the entire time.
Did you make sure they weren't unconscious?
Though they eventually got down and went
Okay.
and did some other stuff. But I just thought that was incredible. I'm like, I've never wanted to read a book upside down, let alone go upside down. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Maybe not the intended consequence of it, but we got to watch out for Batman in the neighborhoods, I guess.
It's a cool structure.
Apparently. Watch out, it might be a vampire Batman.
Could be.
Oh, Northview. Tennis court, the sports court looks great there at Northview. The stairs on the south end, both sets are, the one to the east is covered by ivy, and the one to the west is falling apart.
That's on our budget this year to replace, so.
And on the
As we
west end by those stairs, there is a large amount of water coming out from underneath that railroad tie retaining wall. There is a little corrugated thing there, but it was running around the corrugated and down into the park and making it kind of muddy and nasty along that line.
I think it's a little drain line.
Yeah, well, I don't know where it's coming from, that house, or I don't know. Maybe they just like to jam a hose in the ground and it comes out underneath the retaining wall. I don't know. It was a large amount of clear water. And our lawnmower had been through there enough times to make some really good mushy ruts. On a personal note, one of these days I'm going to go find the corners for that and find out who owns what. Meadows, the play structure was busy as usual. The park is great. No trees were falling down. We're doing good. No limbs laying anywhere, and a few new trees.
Yes.
So, yeah, Meadows was great. Jeff?
Yes, I visited both my parks. Northridge is actually really pretty right now. I mean, the foliage and everything is in full growth. That wheatgrass along the wetlands bottom is 5-6 feet high. The one access point that I've gone to before in the Northwood Apartments in that parking lot, there's a little bit of a steep downgrade off the parking lot to get down in there. And it was pretty well blocked by the blackberry canes. I fought my way through it, but it's not a public access space anyway, so I understand that. It's an undeveloped park, but there was some trash there I picked up, but other than that, it looks nice. The one thing I thought was, I didn't understand the first time I visited it was along 10th, the access there, and on Google Maps and the Keizer maps, it shows the park as being more of that space around 10th Avenue, and then a little bit more of a leg past that. But that whole space is fenced off and says private property, no access. So I guess I'm confused about, is that property part of the park or not? Because on Google Maps and Keizer Park maps, it shows it as being the park.
I would need a little more information. Are you talking about the access point that's between two houses?
Well, I'm talking by that, is it the church there on 10th, just right straight down here?
Oh, I know where you're talking.
Yeah, there's a field.
That is not ours.
Okay.
That is not ours.
Well, if I look at the map on Google Maps that designates where the park is, it shows that land and the land around the backside of that house as the park. And that's it. It doesn't show that space up towards
Google Maps
the
is
creek
incorrect.
base. So that's why I wanted to ask you. So
Interesting.
Google Maps needs to be corrected then. I don't know how that's done, but otherwise, I mean, it looks really pretty from the space. You can see it. The other park, Ryan J. Hills, is just really a nice space. And it was, when I visited, it was clean. The trees and the growth are full, and that center island with that water feature, the rock feature, looked great. There were a couple people sitting on one of the benches enjoying it. The trash cans are not full. It looks really nice. And the sign out front looks great too, with the flags around it still from Memorial Day or 4th of July, I'm not sure which. But yeah, that's just a really relaxing little space to pause there in Keizer Station. So thank you.
Wayne Fry's not here tonight, but Holland says he has. Mr. Holland says he has something about Little League Park.
Yes. Sorry I wasn't here last month, but back about 3 months ago, I mentioned the tournaments that they were going to have up at the Keizer Little League complex. And we started these tournaments 3 weeks ago. We've done more stuff up there than we did all of last year. Concessions, I mean, the fields are just booked. West Coast Premier goes all day Friday. And when I mean all day, they start at 7 a.m. and they go to 8 o'clock that night. All day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Every other week, we alternate with another group called NAFTA, which is softball, and they use every field in the complex. And parking has been the biggest problem. We've had some problems with the parking, but big tournaments. They not, NAFTA only plays at our place, but West Coast Premier plays at Wallace Marine Park, Holland Youth Park, and at Keizer Little League. But huge.
Any questions for Roland?
Clint, it's all right.
All right. Now we're down to staff report, and Roland would like to go first because he has an appointment.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. It's been a crazy week. We, our council meeting, we discussed, first of all, we discussed our meeting sessions, how we're going to handle that. And we came to the conclusion that we will be wearing our mask until we get here, just like we're doing here. And we all agreed to that. Once we're stationary and this social distance, then we remove our mask. Other than that, we will be wearing our mask. And one of the things that happened also, we all did an ordinance in regards to our local emergency, and the COVID thing has changed everything, you know, whether it's city work staff, protocols, and we had a work session last night in regards to, and Chris had a nice list of some of the stuff. You were there last night, weren't you, Robert? Oh, I thought. Anyway, we discussed some of the things, that lessons learned and things we're doing. It's been a learning process. You know, Zoom has come into the picture in most of our meetings. We also have had folks work remotely. The plexiglass installation, the signage, everything. They just talked about everything. One of my favorite things is postponement of some of our utility delinquent folks. We kind of relax on a lot of things. A lot of folks have been busy changing their, but I feel in general that the city staff has done a pretty well job of adjusting and accommodating folks. Things will open up when they open up. We just have to kind of go with it. And I think we're adapting pretty well. The other agreement we did was to continue support for the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, which is one of the things Keizer's partnership with with other communities along with Salem. Coming up Monday, we have I don't know if you folks participate with Keizer United, but we'll have that remotely Zoom. I'm looking forward to my first committee meeting with the commission with judicial fitness this Friday, which is it's a 2-hour session. It's kind of interesting. A lot of stuff to learn, a lot of protocols that are different other than what we do here statewide. It's very interesting. And you have to take a lot of, I learned stuff, and I haven't been in school in 30 years, so it's tough for an old guy. In general, I just want to say in general how everybody and the staff has adapted and kind of, you know, worked well together. I know the Public Works at one time went into shifts, and I think they're back to normal, if I'm correct. I know the parks had issues, and when we talked about the parks, it's very understandable that some of the situations, because the COVID incident has changed, and it's changed everything. We all have to be patient and understand that. One question I have for Clint is, who's doing all that work for field maintenance? Stuff I used to do for many years.
I'm going 12 hours, 14 hours a day,
But do you have help?
there's a couple guys out there helping, but we're having a hard time keeping up with the watering. Even the terms, forget that. Like during the week here, the fields are all full. And what I mean there's practicing. The biggest group that uses that complex is 9% of softball of the women. Those programs are so big, it's unbelievable. The boys canceled all their programs, but softball is really big. We do have people come from West Salem to play there, Sprague, South Salem, because the city of Salem parks are still closed. My understanding.
Well, I find it fascinating because I go by there and there's like no place to park. It's amazing. It reminds me of gives me it gives me some memories of the old days. Also, the last thing I wanted to say was in regards to wearing a mask. I think it's, you know, we're in a situation where we kind of, it's a sign of respect. And I think it's, you know, something we have to do now, and we have to adapt, you know, and less complaining and more thinking about other folks, being respectful. And I agree with our pastor said it's a sign of love, really, respecting other folks and thinking about someone other than yourself. So that's all I have for today, and I appreciate you allowing me to be a little early on that. We have a Beacons thing tonight, so.
No, we always
appreciate
looking
that, Chair.
forward, yeah. Hear you, Roland.
Thank you.
We're always, well, all right. That would be Robert's turn now.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with something really cool that we did this last week, I think. And that is the, I will say, initial phase 1 of a cleanup project at Wallace House Park. You each have photos in front of you. And this is the lower area over the initial bank heading down towards the river, where we have had extreme homeless camp issues for the last 4+ years. And the neighbors have come to quite a few meetings with both city park staff, Keizer Police Department, code enforcement. And the discussion's basically just been that, you know, they're tired of seeing homeless folks coming in and out of their side yards and navigating from the park into their backyards, and they feel basically kind of unsafe to go use this area of the park. And so we've had lots of discussions on what to do with that. The number one thing that we really wanted to accomplish was to do some type of a cleanup down there to where we could open up some of the underbrush that they're hiding in. Blackberries, there's a lot of invasive plants down there. There's blackberries, English ivy, and reed canary grass are the top 3 plants down there that we're fighting constantly. So we come across a contractor who actually does brush mowing, and when he mows, he basically grinds up all these really bad plants, and it kind of leaves a nice little mulch behind, similar to like a wood chip material that we would spread for pathways. And we sent him down there kind of as a 2-day trial, and just to see what he could accomplish within 2 days. And he actually got about 2/3 of the lower area mowed, and now you walk down there and you go, whoa, we actually have a park here. It's a really pretty awesome usable area. It's river access. The homeless I can't imagine them wanting to go set up a camp down there because they would be easily seen in these areas that have been mowed. Now some of this is, a lot of it's down in the floodway, and there's a low area back there that tends to gather logs. We won't be able to get a machine in there to do any mowing, so there's some access problems in a few areas of the park for this type of cleanup to take place. But our goal here is to get as much of this area mowed as possible, so that when Keizer Police Department goes down there and does a sweep, a look around, they can access and easily find, if any, hopefully none, homeless camps. And also to encourage people who live in the area to go start using this area of the park again, that they have not been able to really access because it's pretty much been a jungle. But also they felt unsafe. I mean, there's nothing that feels safe about walking through 6-foot tall reed canary grass, not knowing the next corner is going to have who knows who camping in it. So even as city staff, we don't like those situations either. Even the police officers, who have a lot more tools than I do, don't like those situations. It could end as a very bad situation for any of us. So I encourage you, if you have not yet taken a look at what we've done, to go down and do so. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the neighbors on this. There was a couple that were a little, I'll say, skeptical in the very beginning. Once they saw what we've done, they started to really like it. And we hope to accomplish a lot more here before fall gets here. And Cool thing is, if we send the mower through this year, let a lot of the grass come back, mow it once more next year, we can start to do more of a routine mowing maintenance down there. Now that a lot of the, I'll say, larger debris is mulched up, things that would get clogged in our equipment are now become a beneficial mulch. So I think it's a real win-win project for everybody. Hopefully we receive continued A+ rating from the neighbors, and I'd like to see some more of this type of work done in this park. So yeah, you have any questions for me at this time on this project?
I saw it last night. I was amazed.
Yeah, you can actually see the river from up at the parking lot. Just you need to walk up to the edge of the bank from the parking lot. You can actually see down and see water in multiple areas.
Right.
I've also gotten a lot of compliments from folks that live up along the river, just saying the park just naturally looks better. I mean, it literally looked like a jungle to begin with. So you can imagine a little bit of an eyesore for them. So yeah.
Yes, Clem?
I was kind of amazed, Randy took me down my house, Lower Field, and we looked all the way down there, and you could see a lot of improvements, including Dick with Mill has a great big point out there where the land goes out into the water, and he's cleaned all that up. It just, I mean, it stands out along the river how nice that is now.
Yeah, it really looks good.
Yes, Matt?
So that's still going to remain an undeveloped park. There's no plans to do anything down there. It's just going to be open natural area. We're not doing benches and all that stuff. It's just going to remain.
For right now, that's the plan.
Okay.
What the future holds, I don't know.
Okay.
One step at a time. I'd like to see what happens over a couple winters.
Yeah, right.
Because this whole thing goes underwater.
With the flood.
Well, not the whole thing always, but it can go underwater. There's a channel that fills up with water more regularly. And
That's
we
where all
have
the
log
logs
jams.
are.
So last year, I don't know if you all recall, but we actually had a fairly large fire in this park.
Yeah.
And one of the main issues was that the fire department had no access into the area where the fire was. It took them 45 minutes to gain access to it because they had to go knock on neighbors' doors, get one of them to let them drive down, and then proceed to go down the riverbank. Then you got to get all your resources to this area and people. And meanwhile, this fire is going, thank goodness. It was early, I think it was early July, and it hadn't quite hit peak fire danger season. But the fire did start to climb up some of the trees. And basically what happened was a homeless camp abandoned a fire pit that they had going that night, and it caught an entire log jam on fire that had been sitting there for years. And it just started spreading very fast. It's along the river. There's midday winds. And it was a bad situation.
Yeah.
And another reason why we really, really, really wanted this done, one, is to eliminate a lot of the fire danger. Two, is to provide access to the park in case there is a fire that takes off. Safety for the neighbors again. The main reason we're doing this is for the neighbors of the park. So I'm really hoping that they all really like it, because if it hadn't been for them voicing their opinion for the last 4 years, this would not have been done.
It looks amazing.
Thank you. Claggett Creek play structure update. So, yes, COVID has slowed this process down, unfortunately. Just what it's done to everybody, it seems like. But we are still underway to hopefully have this built this fall. I plan on bringing to the next Parks Board meeting a design model for you guys to look at. Because we're trying to meet certain dates, both to get it in front of City Council for approval, to order the play structure parts themselves through the manufacturer, start construction hopefully in September of this year, finish construction by the end of October of this year due to weather, and we want to pour the rubberized surfacing again. It's just a really tight window. And we're hoping to have a little bit more involvement in the process, but I promise you it's going to be a amazing play structure, a very unique design to the setting. And I'd like to show that to you hopefully by this next month's meeting. So, and then we also plan on posting it online. So just want to give you guys an update of where that was at. And the master plan update process for parks is still underway. Bill Lawyer's been working on that. He's been evaluating whether or not we can use AKS engineering firm that we utilize for a lot of different projects. It's starting to appear more likely that we will be doing an RFP very soon for that process. And then that'll be a good fall, winter project for the Parks Board to be involved in. So continuing to move forward with that, and it is coming very soon. Then also, I'm happy to report that I actually got 2 temporary summer employees hired on as of last week. I got one on Monday, one on last Friday. We are training the guys. It is very challenging for us to be training summer temps that we would normally train in April in July when we are at our absolute busiest season. I mean, we're scrambling right now. There's no easy way of telling you, but we're just very, very, very busy, and we're also training guys. And I have a third temp coming on next week. So we're going to be training him as well, or her. I think it's a him. But I'm excited that we have them here finally. Unfortunately, there's a lot of projects that we were hoping to have completed by now, dirt work being one of them. There's a whole laundry list of things that our full-time staff has not been able to accomplish. We are able to keep the grass mowed, keep the garbage cans emptied, clean the bathrooms, things along those lines. But you know, the extra projects that take a lot of time, where we generally utilize our temp labor, we just haven't been able to get to yet. So I'm excited to be able to start crossing some of those items off the list and have some additional help through the summer and into the fall. So I was starting to wonder if we were honestly ever going to see temp help this summer. But we've got our splash fountain de-winterized and we're training somebody on that. Fingers crossed, we might be able to get that open within the next couple weeks, assuming the governor's orders don't change. Currently, we can open that and not post a monitor. We just have to put signs up encouraging social distancing. So if those rules change and get more strict, we may actually look at just not opening it. But currently, our plan is to get that open and at least have a short splash fountain season for the public. So we're excited about that too. Any other questions for me?
I do.
Yes.
Gazebo railing looks really bad.
Yes. We had a scout that was working on that project. I haven't heard from him recently.
Gazebo what?
The railing, the iron railing
yeah.
is peeling.
Yeah.
It looks, I thought it was going to be done. So I was
Yeah.
rather surprised when I walked through there and it was not done.
You know, Palmer, he knocked his project out like overnight, it seemed like. A lot of the Eagle Scouts, I would say on average, take about 6 months to complete a project, once beginning to end when we hear from them to completion. I've had some take as long as a year. If they're young and they're like 16, they're kind of not as, I'll say, generally ambitious to get it done really, really fast. If they're approaching their 18th birthday, which is when they're required to have their project done by, then they're very ambitious to get it done. So and then we have everything in between. So I imagine that Scout will be seeking that project more seriously soon, but
I'll follow up with that. And,
yeah.
Okay.
Who knows
Thank
what
you, Matt.
COVID has dealt that person as well. So we're all trying to be very patient with each other and understanding, but you know, I have a couple Eagle Scout projects in my mind right now. So if you guys hear of anybody, Wallace House Park being one of them, I would love a formal trail to be built down through this area now.
We built one
more
one time.
defined. Yes, there was one built. What was that? 8 years ago now?
longer than that.
Was it longer?
Yeah, I did the chainsaw for him. I've
Yeah.
never run into 2-inch ivy before.
Yeah. The cool thing was that piece of equipment that guy used was able to get some ivy off the trees, but now at least we have access to a lot of the trees, where before we had no access to the trees. So there's a lot of benefits to that whole project. But yeah, if you guys hear of any Eagle Scouts, I would definitely like to send one down to that park soon. Could be either this summer, this fall, or next spring.
Yes, Matt?
So, Robert, speaking about the Eagle projects and some of the other volunteer projects we've had through the park grant fund, something, if you would consider taking a note for next time, it'd be interesting to see what the success of last year's grant cycle looked like in terms of how much was done through the youth program versus not, and then just kind of give us a ballpark look at how successful that might have been, so we can kind of gauge off of this year too.
I'd be happy to give you that information, but I really don't think it's a proper comparison because we weren't able to meet for about 3 months. And I truly think that squashed the youth opportunity tremendously.
Because of the spring, okay.
So don't you agree? I mean,
yeah, I mean, that was kind of the hard part because, I mean, I know we had a bunch of interest leading into February, but then with everything that hit in March, it just kind of...
I don't personally feel that information would be very accurate to base anything off of. I think that hopefully this next year would be more accurate, but...
Yeah, that's a good point.
The troops just are starting to have in-person meetings.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, as I was then. No, you're right. As soon as I said it, I was like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
But we have status quo budget from last year. We have the same grant program last year that we did this year, and the fiscal year just started July 1st.
Yep.
So same pot of money's refreshed for this year, available for the youth program as well as for the other parks grant program.
Correct.
That's 15,000?
15,000 total.
For the year? Okay. I'm just looking at Peggy and Jerry and wondering what they're coming back to us with this year.
Yeah.
Something about a satellite dish and an 80-inch TV. I think I'm not sure. You know, they said they wanted to put that in their living room and it's going to help them watch plants grow. But
Learn about plants.
I'm having a hard time believing that.
You know what? You joke, but that's not a bad idea. A live footage stream, like of the
waiting for a giraffe to be born or whatever that was, like 4
no,
or 5 years ago.
like if you could, I mean, just like, and just a dumb idea, but like you put a GoPro in the garden and you set it to like time lapse mode or something. I would watch that. I like to watch plants grow as long as it's fast enough that I can see it happen.
You like watching paint dry too?
That's different. Oh, paint doesn't grow.
You put it in water.
Is that all, Robert?
That's it. Thank you.
Now, other business, or known as Matt's Minute.
Always got jokes. Well, so I missed last month's meeting. My daughter was graduating from middle school through the TV, which was very strange, but still pretty cool. One of the things that Debbie brought up was that the Keizer Parks Foundation was going to be honored by the city as Volunteer of the Quarter. I was able to attend that ceremony, and we had many representatives of the Keizer Parks Foundation here for that. It was really cool to see one of our former colleagues, Donna Bradley, and many other people that we've been a part of get recognized for the many years of service and thousands of hours of service to the city of Keizer. And if I understand it correctly, I think the Parks Foundation is disbanding. Is that correct, Debbie? So it was a necessary entity prior to the parks fee. They were there as sort of the fiscal arm of the Parks Department, and they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for projects in the city, namely like the Big Toy and things like that. But they've also generated fundraising efforts and stuff through the Eclipse project, which helped fund the solar shade sales and everything else like that. So it was just cool to see them being recognized for all their efforts. I believe that there was actually a plaque with some of their names put on it down at Keizer Rapids, specifically with the ones involved with that project. And so just my hats off to you guys, again, for all the efforts in doing that and, carrying the true spirit of pride, spirit, and volunteerism in everything they did during their lifetime. And sad to see them go, but they served a great purpose while they were around. So Aside from that, not a lot going on with Watershed Council. We're pretty much done for the summer. We had a couple projects that got canceled. Saugerty and the park got canceled, which was really sad. We had a lot of things set up and ready to go for that, but because of the restrictions on gatherings, unfortunately we had to cancel that event. We were still successful getting the Civic Center cleanup done in March, because that was before everything kind of got sideways on us. We had a little bit less volunteers. I think people were still a little bit just starting to get COVID shy a little bit, and none of the restrictions had been put down yet, but we still had about 100 folks come in. They completely filled another 30-yard debris bin. Now, I want you guys to take into consideration, Robert and his staff clean up all year round, okay? We still filled 30 yards of debris, and a lot of that's coming from trimming the bushes and stuff out there, getting a lot of the debris out there. It's a lot of work, a lot of volunteers. This is the second year in a row we've had satellite gaming, so Dylan and his guys were out there and gals were out there. They had the worst job of the entire project. They were pulling out these gigantic, ridiculously heavy, I think they might have been reed canaries type.
Kind of a pompous grass.
Yeah, it was a ridiculously huge, ugly grass. But these people were bringing these wheelbarrow loads up, and these grass balls were weighing like 250 pounds because there was so much root ball in there. But they tackled it and just worked really, 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 really hard on it. But it was great to see Chief Teague out here. Chris Epley was out here for it. The mayor was out here for a little while. But really, really good project that happens every year in March. First chance I've had to talk about it, but yeah, that's all I got, and glad to be back with all you awesome folks here on the Parks Board. So I apologize for my absence last month, and yeah.
Any other?
Can I answer that? Yes. Just thinking, because during this COVID thing, my meetings were canceled, so there wasn't much for me to do. So I continued the work of the Civic Center cleanup and pruned bushes and planted a bunch of daffodils from my yard. So hopefully they'll come up this spring and every spring from now on, and you can remember me by the daffodils.
Daffodils and wood fiber material.
Yeah.
I still can't drive by that mountain of the wood fiber material and think, oh, poor Debbie. If you don't know the story, Debbie was basically in charge of literally the entire initial surface at Keizer Rapids, laying out all the weed barrier material, right, at Big Toy, all the weed barrier material, all of the 3/4 minus, all the bark chips. And I learned very quickly that when you're in Debbie's way, don't be in Debbie's way, because she'll remind you that she's in charge and you just exist to do other things that be other than Debbie's way. But she was very, very kind about it. Very kind about it. So we're gonna have to build you something out of that. Maybe we can get a big bucket of those and epoxy them together and build her a vase. Does anybody know how to do that epoxy wood turning thing? I gotta figure somebody out. That'd be cool. Make you a vase out of that stuff.
Well, there's still some there to.
A couple, yeah.
Any other? All right. Stand adjourned at 7:14.
1 minute before Clint had to leave.